Hello everyone, welcome to yet another day in this Clown Decade, the decade where things are only going to get worse before they get better. If you want to keep up to date with all things Clown Decade, please do subscribe to the channel and of course become a member. Anyway, today we have been absolutely gifted with two PoliticsJOE Vox Pops in the constituency of Clacton, where Nigel Farage is an MP, and they decided to ask people about what they think of his plan for illegal migrants and what they think of his plan to deregulate workers' rights, both of which I am very much in favour of. Anyway, we'll skip the PoliticsJOE introductions, we'll skip the initial what's up ahead snippets at the beginning, and just get straight into the opinions. Take it away, the good people of Clacton.
Do you have any ideas for how immigration could be lowered or the small boats crisis could be solved?
Will stop France from following them all the way to our borders.
Yeah, that would be a good one. We're giving them hundreds of millions of pounds. Honestly, you're going to get spicy opinions in this video. If there is one thing people absolutely hate, it is people who break the law. Britain is googly-eyed for law and order, which I love, by the way. And it's what's made the violence in places like Canary Wharf the other day so interesting. It's quite rare that a migrant actually gets attacked. They do get attacked, obviously, but most of the anger's at the police. And people are angry at the police because they don't feel like they're doing their job properly, which I have to agree with, but obviously I'm not justifying any attacks against the police. I think they're despicable.
The Navy following them and leading them to our borders. Stop it. Turn them back.
Yes, this is basically what the British people have been begging for ever since the issue was made quite plain and obvious by, well, Nigel Farage on GB News. Obviously, there were other smaller accounts pointing out the issue as well, but Nigel Farage is really what threw it into the mainstream.
Take them back to France.
Do you think the UK needs to be tougher on France?
Yes. Massive.
I mean, there's obviously the natural hatred of France that every Brit should feel. But this is just reflecting the opinions of every normie I know, really. Yeah, we've given France a load of money and they don't seem to actually be dealing with the issue that we've paid them to deal with. So why do we keep giving them money? Well, the answer is because literally no one in government feels like they can do anything better.
Put landmines out there.
Do you think?
I mean, just to be nitpicky, technically you'll want sea mines in the ocean, not land mines. But yeah, it's a pretty normie opinion to basically say, well, you know, they're already on a dangerous route, why not make it more dangerous for them? There's just no sympathy left, really. We keep warning them, don't come. If they keep coming, at some point, death does have to be a risk that is a real risk for them, unfortunately. That is genuinely the average mindset of your average normie, especially on the right wing. But even the left wing thinks that these illegals should be deported. It's only the elites of the party that are trying to impress their human rights lawyer friends that say, oh no, absolutely all of them need to have their rights above the British people. There's a reason that there is not much disgust at the violence that you see in places like Canary Wharf and Epping. People are like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But obviously, if you're in Parliament, you can't really be on the side of the people battering the police for obvious reasons.
Nah, there's more could be done on both sides. You know, some sort of barrier put up in the sort of the stretch that they're coming over. There's lots of ideas, and get the Royal Navy out there sort of thing.
I mean, obviously he's rolling back on the whole sea mines thing, probably because it would make shipping across the channel and getting the ferry quite a bit more dangerous that people don't want. But it is a very common opinion that, yeah, obviously the Navy should be involved. Why can't you get the Navy involved? Oh, ECHR or some sort of regulation. Oh, well, we're Parliament, we're sovereign, we should be able to change that. Oh, that's good. Maybe you should change some things then, but no one's willing to change anything apart from, obviously, reform.
It's all going to cost money, but...
You think a Trump-like wall in the channel?
Yeah, you get all these floating buoys. You know, why not?
Because it makes shipping and ferries quite a bit more difficult. You can do that, I suppose, and just make everyone get the Channel Tunnel. I think it's just better to turn them around in the Channel when you find them, or alternatively, obviously, if they make it across, detain and deport. But I think one thing is clear already, even though we've heard two people so far. It's basically that people are fed up to the back teeth of this, and they just want it sorted pretty much overnight. Now, that's obviously not going to happen because nothing's that simple, but it is certainly near the top of the agenda. And you know what? Not even the worst part of immigration. Doesn't make up many of the numbers. The worst part is if indefinite leave to remain is kept in place and the Boris waivers all get to be, well, It's such a ridiculous thing. Indefinite leave to remain effectively makes you a British citizen, except you can't vote. That's what it does. You get access to benefits and to the NHS without paying and all that. Imagine that for the millions of people that Boris Johnson, Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick, by the way, brought over. It's not going to be good.
The Army, Navy could get together and build something and anchor them there, you know, but put it on the border between our side of the English North Sea and the French. Yeah, just make it awkward.
It is quite funny that your average person will front load with the most ridiculous idea for stopping the boats ever, which is effectively, I mean, for lack of a better term, it is effectively kill them. But then obviously that just sounds absolutely ridiculous, and so they have to backload it with, oh, just put up a big wall instead. I'm on the in-between part. You obviously need the threat of death to really make these people think about crossing the channel, and oh, what about the women and children? Well, I'm afraid it is 90-odd% male. And so I think putting the Navy in the channel is just going to be required. Oh, you're in a dinghy? Okay, turn around. Oh, you're not turning around? You know, warning shots or whatever the protocol is. That still, I think, makes some people squeamish, but ultimately, what's the point of having the Navy there if you're not going to use their guns?
Well, the deportation, really. I mean, Rwanda was a good idea. They never give it a chance, but I believe it had started to work because some of the immigrants were going to Ireland, which was a start, like, you know.
This is true, by the way. The Rwanda thing really was working as a deterrent before it even started off. One, the island thing, wasn't many, okay, but it was a start. There was an uptick of people crossing over when they thought the flights would have been going off. That's because they wanted to get in before the doors shut. And then obviously it gets scrapped. What happens? Oh, way more come over because then they think there's no risk. And they'll just get into a 4-star hotel anyway, which is largely what's happening. Another reason I think it was a good idea is because basically every other country is now trying to latch on to the homes that we've built. We sent hundreds of millions over to get these homes built to hold the people while they were being vetted. Obviously, Labour got in to say, we'll scrap it. As soon as they scrap it, Germany and America get in on it, and, well, from what I can tell, it's basically working. Which, out of everything Labour has done, that is probably in the top 3 things that annoyed me most. It's that, plus the Chagos Islands, plus the increase in national insurance. They're terrible, and we've got, well, not quite 4 more years of it. There's less than 4 years. There's your white pill.
But any sort of deportation or offshore processing, I'm sure would deter people from coming. And that's what you've got to do, really, not to turn the boats back. You've got to deter them from getting in the boats in the first place.
Yep, definitely. That is definitely a way to do it. And, well, as Nigel Farage keeps saying, Australia did it with Tony Abbott. They barely have an illegal problem now. It's now a legal problem.
I think, right, that being in Clacton is the furthest away we can get from immigration.
Really?
Yes.
Oh yes, white flight is definitely real. That's why people in Clacton sound, well, almost Cockney. Though interestingly, the drop in the white British population of London has slowed right down. I believe at this point it's about 42% in 2021 census, and it was 45% in 2011, and that came down from 58% in 2001. So it's slowing down, and there's no reason to think that, well, frankly, once the immigration issue is largely sorted, in other words, illegals stop coming over and you actually have net zero immigration, you'll probably see a bit of a reverse of that trend, and you'll have what a lot of people like to call gentrifying, which basically just means middle-class white British people come back in and start preferring nicer shops and restaurants in areas. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be white British, just middle-class British people, mixed race, black British, Asian British, whatever, people who've fully integrated. I don't really care. But that is definitely a trend that can happen, and as the country improves, I can frankly see it happening. Especially when foreigners stop getting social housing. I mean, God, the story of the girl who brandished the axe and the knife. Now, as far as I'm concerned, she's completely in the wrong there, and I can't see anything wrong the Bulgarian actually did in that specific instance. However, the Bulgarian has been here for 4 years and somehow has a council house, and his whole TikTok is effectively him showing off how much money he's got. So he must be doing something dodgy, surely. I don't know how he's showing off that much money and is entitled to a council house, but we have absolutely crazy priorities when it comes to giving out council houses. Nationality and whether you're a foreigner or not, basically not considered. Health issues, money issues, things like that, that's what matters most. And they're things that, well, it's got easier to lie about.
Don't get me wrong, right, immigration is getting moved out of London because the property prices are high and they're getting bought out by properties in Chelmsford, Colchester, and everything, like to get moved out by the places, the council place, wherever they are in London, pushed out because the property prices are high there, and they're moving them out, and they're slowly getting. But we can't go no further than this.
Yes, immigration's moving out of the big cities, partially due to the housing stock, but also there's only so much council housing that these areas have, and they seem to get it. Also, obviously, with the illegals, that's dependent entirely on the hotels that you can get and the HMOs. It's all just a mess, yeah. Clacton, very much anti-immigration area because it's where a lot of old Londoners went. And it's part of the reason the East Anglia and the South East are very much reform country, as the North is, because frankly a lot of people who move there are people who move from cities and very much felt the massive downsides that came with mass migration. Hence, a lot of people want it sorted.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The amount of illegal immigrants, the implications of the cost on the sort of general. I'm retired now, sort of thing. I'm not working as such, but for a working person, you know, the amount of money they've got to pay out for all the hotels they're staying in. And
oh yeah, it's annoying. Well, it's beyond annoying. It's highly irritating that your money from your taxes are siphoned straight, or part of it is siphoned straight to go to these complete strangers and foreigners, to frankly give them a better quality of life than you. I mean, to be fair, at the next bit, he brings up they don't do anything.
the cost of living, it's just keeping them, you know, they're doing nothing, you know, for the country sort of thing.
The problem with this argument is that it very much opens the door to the pro-migration side to say, oh, well, just let illegals work then. Like, as soon as they come in, if they're waiting, just let them work then. And it gets away from the actual problem, which is, no, they shouldn't be here in the first place. They've broken the law. They wouldn't pass any DBS checks, definitely, because by definition, they are criminals. So I'd say even on that point, just don't bring up that they don't do anything. Just say it is a drain on British resources that we do not want to waste money on. And, you know, make it clear, no, I don't particularly want them working, because the typical work they can get and that they do is actually delivery driving, and that is just a way to effectively keep the illegal migrant ring going. It's horrendous.
I think the best thing to do is, wherever they're coming from, is to try and sort of do a communication with them. I think that's where it's a link, where it's missing. All this sort of sending back and forwards, and just speak to that country and ask them, you know, how they can start from their end. It can't just be from our end. It must start from one end or the other.
Well, I think it's quite unreasonable to ask another country to stop their people from leaving that country, because there's no way to know if they're going to go to Britain. And even if it was specifically you're going to Britain, no, you're not allowed to leave, they'll just start lying. However, communications do need to be made, because, yes, you need to send people back. So that's why Reform are going to talk to the Taliban and say, do you want all these Afghanistanis back? And obviously, hopefully, they'll say yes for some money. And I'm happy to pay that to send a lot of illegals back there.
I personally think we should be more like Australia, to be fair. There should be some sort of point system. But obviously, I'm not into politics, so I don't really know how things like that work.
Well, funnily enough, we actually did put in a point system. It's just it was so easy to get points, it basically made it pointless, and that was part of the reason we ended up with the Boris wave. Basically, if you knew English and you had a job that was like £2,000 below median wage, you're in. And even if you didn't have the job, I think if you were educated enough, you could come over. Obviously, if you're a student, you got a student visa. Our version of the point system was horrendous, but we do have a point system, and it won't be that difficult to adjust it to make it incredibly difficult to come over, like Australia do, but Australia still have immigration issues, so why not just make it more difficult than Australia?
So, yeah, I think we should be more like Australia, a bit more tighter on our borders. I wouldn't know how to stop the boat people. I think that needs to be something they need to discuss with places like France, who allow them to come over.
No, we've been talking to France and giving them money for years. It's not the way to go. Your point being, though, once again, yes, I want something done about this. Please do it quickly. That's pretty much everyone's position on immigration, or at least the vast majority of people.
Why do you trust Nigel Farage to tackle immigration? Because obviously we've had successive governments try and fail.
Well, you've got to give other people a chance, because you've had the Conservatives in, they talk a good talk, the same as Labour, but nothing seems to happen.
Oh yes, that's going to be a lot of people's opinion when it comes to the ballot box next year. Next year? God, I wish. Sorry, in 2029. Because ultimately it's going to be quite difficult to forget 14 years of making the country worse and worse and worse and worse. And then Labour get in and they somehow drop kick it to an even worse state, which actually takes some skill, to be honest with you. Reform come in, they say, look at our councils, look how we're running them, we found a hell of a load of savings, let's change that stuff. Unfortunately, we can't change it until we're in Parliament. Yeah, it's going to be quite attractive, I think. I mean, I was already on the reform train, but I think your average normie will hear this sort of thing and think, well, they sound like they know what they're doing, and that's good enough for me.
He talks well about migration, but he can't do no worse than what we've had already.
I'm very much on that side of things. I mean, that's the bare minimum, really, isn't it? If he is at least better than the other two parties, you'll probably see 10 years of reform, but I'm actually a bit more optimistic than that and think he will do rather well and get done 60% of the things I want done.
I don't think he's as frightened as the others. The major politicians seem to be terrified to rock the boat. They want to change. They don't know how, they don't know what to do, and they're terrified of upsetting everybody else.
Oh, that's definitely the case, I'd say. Farage has thrived on throwing spanner in the works and all that, as says Richard Tice, well, all the MPs really. And they've managed to, well, make it look like they're doing it in a rather professional way.
Immigration, to me, is not a massive concern. It's more the people that come over. You don't know who they are. You know, if they're coming over genuinely to protect their family from war zones, and if they're coming over to contribute, to pay their taxes, you know, and do it the proper way, then absolutely no issues with that.
Yeah, this is a bit of a problem you have with the British people. There's a lot of people who have that opinion where, oh, it's only the illegals and the criminals that are the issue. No, not really. I don't know if it's necessarily fair to say that these people are sheltered. However, I think it would be difficult to say there's not a problem when you see all the, well, goings on when it comes to areas of Leicester, Birmingham, London even. Areas where basically the only things in English are the road signs because they have to be. Entire town centres taken over on things like Pakistan Independence Day, where you have an absolutely massive celebration with Pakistan flags everywhere, but then on something like VE Day you will see absolutely nothing in that town centre. And the thing is, with a lot of people, they will probably hear or see that and think, oh, that's just a bit odd. But I think the more you see and hear it, the more it gets difficult to just shrug your shoulders at it. However, not everyone is as red-pilled as those of us who concentrate on politics 24/7 are. But what you should take away from this is that immigration to a lot of people, especially who move to areas like Clacton, is not particularly noticeable anyway. So whether it increases, which we don't want obviously, but if it decreases, they won't notice it anyway. And I'm talking net zero immigration, or hell, even net emigration. They won't care. So look at that as a positive. You're not going to get pushback from people like that, just from the crazy leftists.
I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it, really? I mean, obviously, we pay France a load of money every year for them to help stop the boats coming over. And it seems like it's just money being thrown away.
I am actually quite interested in how many people actually know that we give France money. I didn't think many people really knew that, but it appears that basically everyone in Clacton knows that. It always feels like one of those things that slipped under the radar, but it appears I'm wrong about that. A lot of people know we pay France to do nothing.
Again, you've seen things in newspapers on social media where it looks like the French authorities are not stopping the boats.
Yeah, wow, everyone's seen this. And I'm kind of wondering why. I can only really put it down to GB News, possibly Facebook as well, because that's where an awful lot of boomers are. In fact, it is quite funny. I am someone who trudges through an awful lot of different types of social media, and Reform hate's pretty much only on Twitter, which is quite funny because Twitter is very much a more American-leaning platform. Over on TikTok, it's basically nothing but positivity in the comments whenever it comes to Reform, unless it's infested with leftists. And then obviously on Facebook, it's Boomer Central, and they're in love with Nigel Farage. Twitter seems to be the only place where you get an awful lot of this. Reform hate is genuinely the word. I was going to say scepticism, but I think that's too light for what's actually going on. Which is quite funny because Twitter is actually the least popular platform when it comes to social media in Britain. TikTok and Facebook are massive compared to Twitter in Britain, which is something that I think an awful lot of people on the online right who, let's face it, are pretty much entirely on Twitter, always seem to forget. You go over to Facebook and TikTok, it's huge. The support for reform, absolutely massive.
But it is a tough one. I mean, like I said, there's nothing wrong with immigration as long as it is controlled. There's so many countries in the world that will have allowance for immigration.
This is another point I keep trying to make to the remigration side of things. People like immigration. They do. They actually do like it. Pretty much everyone in Britain at this point will know some sort of immigrant that they like, and that's why they want a bit of a soft touch with the legal side. Hence, the best way to do that is effectively to try and price people out of immigration. No access to benefits whatsoever until you are an actual citizen, which costs a lot of money and already takes years. Okay, the test is comically easy. We should probably make that harder, sorry. Just completely get rid of indefinite leave to remain. I don't know why that's a thing. Visas harder to get, things like that. People are all for higher controls. They just want to avoid it affecting their own friends and possibly in some cases even family. Though if you're family at that point, you've probably married in and then you actually do have leave to remain. Because obviously you've got a spousal visa. By the way, I reckon that should run out after divorce. I don't think that's how it works at the moment, but I don't think you should have leave to remain if you divorce the British citizen that you married to get in on. But even that might be too harsh for people, but it's what's really funny whenever I hear people say, I am the mainstream. People like AA saying, oh, immigration's just got ridiculous and everyone wants remigration. It's not true. It's not true at all. No one who has been interviewed today, I reckon, would say anything too different than to what this guy's saying, which is effectively, legal immigration's fine, I just want it way more controlled and way down. Which, by the way, is pretty much what I want. But then again, I actually understand what that means, which is probably net emigration.
But, like I said, it's about limiting that and making sure. We're a small island at the end of the day. We only have so many houses and so many flats and so many hospitals, etc. And it's about managing that, really.
I mean, not a great argument. The retort is, well, you can just build more. But obviously, I think NIMBYism's gone absolutely huge recently because people are just worried that everything being built is for the benefit of foreigners rather than for British nationals. So everyone kind of retreats to this zero-sum thinking, which I don't think is actually particularly useful, but it is the average normie thinking at the moment. But he's not wrong. Immigration does effectively need to entirely stop or be net emigration. That's what he's insinuated there. So it appears he does know what control immigration means.
But in regards to what the government could do to kind of get it under control, I'm probably not the right person to answer that. But I would say, I mean, it's such a tough one, isn't it? Because there's no real right or wrong answer.
Oh, you don't think that. You think there's an awful lot of wrong answers. And I mean that on both sides of the debate. I think he wants to give an answer that is not going to be too offensive and risk his job. But there is absolutely no way he supports open borders. He's already said that.
I think maybe not necessarily throwing as much money towards France as an example is not necessarily the right way of doing it. Maybe also not hand Rwanda all these millions of pounds they paid, I think, to deport 2 people, whatever it was in the paper.
To be fair, on the Rwanda scheme, it was supposed to be much larger than that. And we pretty much were at the end of paying the initial sums to get everything built. I'm not being funny, but it's working for other countries. You can blame Labour for that one.
But I think there should be, if you come over and you've got your documents, yes, go into like whether it's a migrant hotel or whatever it may be for a limited amount of time.
Oh no, wet. No. If you come over with your documents on a boat, you still go back. Do not say that because you will be inundated with infinity fake documents. Just no, send them back. We have safe and legal routes. We give it for certain countries that genuinely need refugee help. Hong Kong, Ukraine, Afghanistan, though we were way too large on that shore. But coming over via any illegal route, no. We have to say no to that.
And then if you are passed through the system correctly, fine.
Yeah, people don't really have an issue with the Ukrainians and Hong Kongers, I have to say. It's got to a point where I've seen people just not believe that we've had hundreds of thousands of Hong Kongers because they just keep themselves to themselves and don't cause an issue. This is another thing that, to be honest, I'm kind of glad reform's leading into, which is, it's very specific nationalities that are causing massive issues that we need to focus on. That I am quite happy with.
Is there lots of immigration into Clacton? Is that something that you've seen?
Not so far, but We know it will come because we travel around the country, we visit other places, and we've seen places where it already is. And we're just next on the list.
Ooh, that's a big old immigration anxiety right there, and yeah, I don't think it's unreasonable. There's a reason that Tories were voted in on partially because of their immigration stance, which was a cap of tens of thousands or whatever it was. I mean, you got to bear in mind, back in like 2015, I think it was, Nigel Farage was saying we need a cap of 50,000 net immigrants, and that was seen as radical back then. These days, they're happy to say net zero. Honestly, I did the video on it the other day. Sorry, the discussions on immigration have gone pretty far to the right from where they were back in the day, where it was basically if you don't support open borders, you're a racist, and now it's if you want more than 100,000 people in the country, you're a crank leftist.
We know a couple of places in Clacton that have got migrants in them. There is a couple of places, but they don't broadcast it.
I think what he's saying there is that, yeah, obviously there are a few migrants in Clacton, but they've not made a community, and they are not, as I said before, when it's, say, Pakistan Independence Day or wherever they're from, they're not in the town centre basically taking over the thing. Effectively, they're either integrating, or if they're not integrating, they're certainly not getting in the way of day-to-day lives of other people, which a lot of people are happy with.
Yeah, bring back Margaret Thatcher.
Do you think she could solve it?
No, I really don't know. She was a stern woman. She got things done.
Damn based. I agree. But to be fair, yeah, Margaret Thatcher did get things done, and she was very tough on immigration. We had net emigration, in the 80s. So I think it's fair to say she knew what she was doing.
People didn't like her, but she did get things done. I don't think anyone who says they're going to go into power, they say they're going to do things. They don't. I don't trust them one bit.
Oh yeah, trust in politics, out the window. Hence, there's an awful lot of frustration going on.
Migration, spending money on Ukraine, Russia, supplying the weapons, and I don't know.
That is a very big problem people have that I hear all the time. Why is all this money going to effectively foreign interests? All right, fair enough, it's a war. But close to home, why is it all being spent on hotels and things like that? And, we have to make sacrifices like the winter fuel payments. I think most people would be happy with getting rid of the winter fuel payments if we didn't have the migration problem. But the problem is that you literally cannot do anything to fix the economy until the migration issue is sorted, because everyone knows it costs billions. And that's everyone's first priority. Stop spending money on foreigners.
He thinks he can solve the immigration problem in the boats. If there was a simple problem, it would have been solved by now.
I unfortunately, I don't think that's true. I think, especially with the Tories, and to be honest, with Labour to some degree, there is an interest in keeping it going. It's made some people very rich, some people who donate to the party, some people who have connections to the party. And I think they're trying to keep the gravy train going. Yes, I am that cynical. I think the problem is very simple, and I think because they didn't solve the simple problem, they're never going to recover. That's the dream scenario anyway.
I mean, he was proposing scrapping the human rights legislation because it would make he said it would make deporting people easier.
It would make it easier, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do.
I mean, yeah, fair, but it is the right thing to do, mainly because, believe it or not, we had human rights before 1997, which were, was it 99? I can't remember. I put out 2 years, they were both wrong. 1998. We had human rights before 1998. Obviously, the Human Rights Act was effectively putting the ECHR into British law, and yeah, that's kind of ruined everything. But you can still have your right to your life, liberty, and estate without the Human Rights Act, because you had the right to that all the way back, even to the Bill of Rights, 16. I'll just make up a number, 86. Damn, I was 3 years off on that one. 1689. Thank you, John Locke. Very cool.
Would you be concerned that scrapping that legislation could impact the rights of other people in Britain as well?
Yeah.
Well, in that case, my advice to reform is scrap it anyway. Just make sure that the comms on the British Bill of Rights that you are planning are very, very clear that these people's rights will be protected.
I mean, you said that it's not a simple solution and it's not a simple problem. Why do you think that successive governments have struggled to get a grip on this issue?
Because there is no simple answer to it. It's clear as that.
I sympathise with the outlook here, but I just do not agree. Sorry, but these people just do not care about you and did not care to actually solve the issue. Largely because of money, quite frankly. It's part of the reason that I want them punished. That's part of the reason I want everyone to vote reform. Make sure that they know they can't get away with that sort of thing. Sunday Times Rich List. Basically every newcomer owned a hotel. That is directly because of the ridiculous amounts of immigrants coming over. And hell, they even hid from you that they were bringing over 100,000 Afghanistanis. They hid that from you. Okay, they tried to get the Rwanda scheme off, kept getting blocked to the courts thanks to the ECHR. Did they ever plan to leave it? No, of course they didn't. I don't think that was ever planned to actually go through, but it did look like it could work should they actually get deportations through.
And various governments would have done something about it by now if it was simple and easy, but it's clearly not. That's why it still exists.
You have to admire this man's trust in politics and people, but unfortunately, no, life is actually a bit nastier than that. Anyway, that will do for the immigration question, and now it's on to whether the constituents of Nigel Farage agree with... They've titled this, Farage's constituents find out he wants to take their rights away. Go on then, let's have a look.
Were you aware that all of those rights are given to us by the Human Rights Act?
Right.
It's so dishonest. The Human Rights Act effectively scrapped previous human rights acts that we had, or laws that enforced human rights, I should say, to replace it with the ECHR, which, by the way, was partially based off the human rights that we already had in law. One thing she is not saying here is that they are replacing it with a British Bill of Rights. Believe it or not, that's going to be a replacement for the Human Rights Act to protect people's rights in Britain to not be tortured, say.
And a certain politician, maybe you could guess, and said that he wanted to tear up that legislation. Right. Do you have any idea who it might be?
What, our government now, is it?
It's not.
There's so much disdain for Labour. That's just incredible. To be fair, it'd be very funny if she finds out, well, she's going to find out it's Nigel Farage and then change the tune instantly and says, oh, it must be a good idea then. That would be a classic U-turn.
Nigel Farage, your MP.
Really?
Yeah, are you a bit surprised by that?
I think the rights in those who come over here, they need to earn the rights. Yeah, we put a lot into where we are today, and it's been taken away from us.
Wasn't quite that, but it was an instant pivot. She clearly has her eye on what Reform is saying, and she actually understands that scrapping the Human Rights Act actually means, effectively, yeah, having rights for British citizens, and obviously less rights for those that aren't citizens, which makes perfect sense. Oh, it's two-tier, it's two-tier. Chad, yes. That was the reply from Zia Yusuf. Yes, we are going to put British citizens above everyone else. That is our job as the government. Hence the pivot here.
No, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I just know Farage locally.
Sorry, but as MP of Clacton, whose rights has he actually taken away? Who's he tortured? I want more details on that, please.
Does that concern you? What do you think about that?
It doesn't really concern me. I think Farage is going the right way. I think Starmer's going the wrong way.
I mean, these are the instincts of the people who are on Reform's side but aren't fully clued up as to what the arguments are. It's literally just, yeah, I trust him. I don't think he's going to let people torture British citizens. I think what he's going to do is sort the migrant problem out and protect British citizens' rights and lives, because he's made clear that that's his priority. Because, to be frank with you, this interviewer is being incredibly disingenuous right now. But I don't think any of these people so far are realising that. And those on Farage's side are basically doing their best to defend him without really realising that they're being asked a very leading question.
I guess I would say it might have been Farage.
Why would you guess that?
He's very outspoken, but he says what people want to hear, sort of thing, so...
None of them are actually getting the argument right, so to speak, which I don't really blame them for, which is effectively that, yeah, it's to be replaced with the British Bill of Rights, which bring in most of the good parts of the Human Rights Act and get rid of all the bad parts, i.e. British rights come first, illegals get deported, that sort of thing.
He's a bit of a rogue at times. He says a lot of things, but whether he'll follow through on them, it's a different matter, sort of thing, you know. But
yeah, I don't blame people for their scepticism. No one has trust in politicians. Obviously, that's going to rub off on Farage and Reform a bit. That's part of the reason that they're playing a bit of a gambit with the councils, which is effectively just, look, you can trust us. Richard Tice yesterday going through the very dry but important point that pension schemes run by the councils are having their money wasted and being put into green investments and international investments and things like that, when really they could be investing local infrastructure. It's effectively making them lose money, and guess what? It's basically insured by the council, and that comes out of the council's money, which is wasting millions and millions of pounds. It's all very dry, it's all very tedious. I've skipped on a lot of detail there, but to your average normie who's not particularly interested in it, they'll probably say, oh, this looks like businessmen who know what they're doing.
I do agree with a lot of his policies, sort of thing, you know.
I think this is another point on why I like going through these vox pops, that is missed out on the online right sphere of Twitter, which is effectively that, no, you don't understand, the average normie actually really, really, really likes Farage, and out of all politicians, they are his favourite. Obviously, the more left-leaning types think he's a total charlatan and will ruin the country, but we've all known that for decades anyway. But no, your average normie, to be honest, I think even those who voted Remain are willing to put some of their trust in him now. Because even though I don't think it's the best reason in the world, how could he possibly be worse? Which, you know what, I'll take it.
I think he's done the right thing, to be honest, with what he's been saying, but at the same time, I'm not really much into government stuff, so...
See what I mean? I don't care. If you vote for reform, I will take it. But it is quite amazing how 2 years ago saying this from a PoliticsJOE vox pop would have had people horrified. But reform are taken so seriously now that effectively people just think, you're going on about torture and all this stuff about rights. Like, he's obviously not going to take these things away from us. Why would he do that? What he says is completely different to what you're trying to paint him as, and I'm too used to the media lying to me. Honestly, this is very white-pilling. I thought the reaction would be way more mixed than this, but pretty much everyone's on Farage's side apart from that one old guy.
Is what it is at the end of the day, to be honest.
I mean, this is pretty typical Zoomer. It's another thing I really need to get into the heads of people on X for some reason. The whole Zoomer waffen, they're all ethno-nationalists, they're all racist, whatever. That's just not true. A lot of them are communists. A hell of a lot more of them are just normal people. An awful lot of them, by the way, will absolutely have a diverse friend group. I keep seeing it, actually. Even in Wales. You tell these people that you're going to deport their friends and Marcus Rashford, they're going to think you're mental. I don't know why this has to be keep being said, but I guess this is what happens when you get thrown into an echo chamber for too long.
Are you concerned at all that like any of those rights that are protected would be unprotected if you did scrap it?
Yeah, because I feel like Clacton's getting run down a bit with other people coming in, and we're losing jobs, losing places to live.
I mean, this is answering a completely different question to the one that was then asked. I'm not sure if this person really understands what's going on here, which, given that this person has said they're not into all that government stuff, as they put it, which I don't blame them, I find it very boring at that age. Effectively, they've fallen back on a kind of centre-right NPC talking point of, yeah, I am worried the government's going to ruin everything because they've already ruined what it's like to live in Clacton. Barely can afford a house, barely any jobs, etc, etc, etc. Kind of heartwarming that this person has fallen back on that centre-right talking point and isn't really in the left-wing zeitgeist. Maybe it's dependent on living in Clacton and who your parents are, who knows?
And losing out on a lot of money for our community, and if he scraps everything, then Clacton's just going to go downhill.
Yeah, literally just answered a completely different question to the one asked, but you know, it's a vox pop. I don't particularly blame them. It's quite difficult to give perfect answers in vox pops. Plus, there's the added pressure of there's a camera in your face. I don't really begrudge anyone for that. I just find it funny, and if I was on a vox pop, I'd do the same thing.
And our rights don't mean anything anymore. It belongs to someone else who wasn't born or bred in this country. It's an unfair system at the moment.
See, this is the thing. It's like all these people understand that Farage is going to be bringing in the British Bill of Rights. They just can't name it, which is quite strange. And as I say, that's another comms issue on reform, but everyone gets the idea and they are not falling for this leading question, which is really good to see.
How high up on your list of concerns as a voter is immigration?
Oh, it's got out of hand. We've got 3 more years of our Labour government. By then, England's finished.
Just say it's at the top. That's what you have to say. Slowly but surely we'll get to the point where people don't feel like they need to front load their I'm not a racist but when it comes to immigration, but we're not quite there yet.
We are finished.
Why is that?
Taxes. Keeps taking money. And us who work, who have a house, who pay our bills, we don't get any help. But we've been taxed on it.
Yep, that is definitely a narrative that has taken a stranglehold on the normie. Your money is being siphoned straight to foreigners. It's actually a very small amount. Most of it's being siphoned to pensioners. But, the pensioners don't particularly want to complain about that because they vote.
Is that your highest concern, is immigration or tax, or is there...
This country's just falling apart. Really? And we can't do nothing about it. We are governed by them, the government, who don't live in the real world.
You can just say yes, it's perfectly fine to these days.
Nigel Farage.
It was Nigel Farage. Are you surprised by that?
Oh, not at all, no.
Why are you not surprised?
Well, they're basic English values, aren't they? And British values, yeah. So obviously Nigel would be up for that, yeah.
Sorry, I'm very confused by this answer. I'm not surprised Nigel Farage is taking these rights away because they're basic English values. No, I need expansion on this. I'm confused.
He was proposing getting rid of the piece of legislation that gives us those rights yesterday.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's misunderstood. But again, disingenuous because it's missing out the whole replacing with British Bill of Rights.
What rights were he banning with?
This is the funny part. Just nobody believes the disingenuousness of this. It's so alien, the idea of Nigel Farage to them, that he would get rid of your right to not be tortured, that they can't believe it. And that's because, yeah, it's disingenuous. It's not true. He's replacing their Human Rights Act with the British Bill of Rights, which just puts the rights of Brits above everyone else.
So he proposed scrapping the Human Rights Act, which enshrines the right to a fair trial.
Is that the European Human Rights Act?
Yeah, so the European Convention of Human Rights is enshrined in the...
This has nothing to do with the questions you asked before, because the questions you asked before are enshrined in the British law.
Yeah, this guy's kind of getting it, in that the Human Rights Act replaced all our previous Human Rights Acts. We didn't have a Human Rights Act, I think. They were just enshrined laws that protected human rights and basically put the ECHR into place in British law. And this is the thing. People are saying, oh, well, if getting rid of the Human Rights Act gets rid of our ECHR, European Convention on Human Rights, whatever, the stuff that's stopping us deporting people, that's fine because it's being replaced. And yeah, this guy's just calling out the disingenuousness of the question, which is good to see. This guy's a bit more switched on. He might not know about the replacement with the British Bill of Rights, but again, reform comms, do better.
That is not to say that scrapping the European Human Rights Act would actually scrap those things that you asked me earlier on.
Yeah, yet again, this is just a problem with misunderstanding what's actually going on, and it doesn't help that you've got an interviewer who's being disingenuous with you. You literally do just have to say, yeah, but he's replacing it with something that puts British rights above that of the foreigners. I'm happy with that. But whether it's down to reform comms or just people don't go that far into the press conferences or what's reported in the news, who goes beyond headlines, who knows?
He proposed scrapping the Human Rights Act 1998, which is a British law, which prescribes it in these rights in our law, and he proposed scrapping that yesterday.
I'd have to see what he said yesterday. Sorry, I wasn't up with it. It was at a Coldplay concert last night. So
Yeah.
If you're not aware, that's probably just the best thing to say. This sounds very odd for Nigel Farage to say. I will have a look and see what he said. Oh, it turns out he's replacing it. That's fine. Totally reasonable. I do not expect the normies to be as switched on as someone like me, who does this for a hobby.
I wouldn't be surprised if any of the new MPs, to be honest with you.
Really?
But most of them are quite corrupt, so...
Basic NPC, all politicians, a bad answer. Again, I'm fine with it. I understand it.
Well, I'm assuming being because you're in Clacton, it'll be Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Oh, well deduced, sir.
Are you surprised by that?
No, not really.
I mean, this is going to go one of two ways. Either he's not surprised because he knows it's being replaced, or he's not surprised because Nigel Farage is far right or something.
I know with regards to kind of his movement, kind of when he first started come onto the scene, a lot of it was kind of getting on the bandwagon, if that's the right way of putting it, or really looking at views that are probably a little bit more against the norm, if that makes sense.
A damn shame, and this is showing why comms are very important when it comes to politics. I think it's very important that the normie knows that the Human Rights Act is not being gotten rid of in so much as it is being replaced. I think the language there is very important, but it's a learning curve, and to be honest, I think most people are on board with it anyway because they want the illegals to stop.
How long have you lived in Clacton?
18 years.
How has Clacton changed in that time?
To me, it's got better because the more the things they're putting in Clacton, like the seafront and things like that, more things going on.
Interesting, because that's not quite what the person who grew up in Clacton had to say about it.
But certain areas of Clacton have gone downhill, where you've got people who have moved in and the area has gone down.
I mean, everyone says this about absolutely everywhere in the United Kingdom, to be fair. It's not anything particularly unique.
What, as voters, what sort of issues matter to you when you go to the ballot box?
Probably migration is one of the big things we're on about, because the country is getting overwhelmed, and having to pay for the migrants in this country is hurting the economy.
Very consistent message on migration throughout all these people, I have to say.
Is what Nigel Farage said, or what Nigel Farage stands for, is that quite appealing to you then?
Yes, we follow him quite regularly. We go to his speeches on the seafront. We voted for him.
Well, hence all the defence, I suppose. But yeah, people with migration at the top of their agenda, very likely to vote reform, unless they think for some reason reform doesn't go far enough. Again, from all my experience with real people and on other social media websites, it appears that that is a very Twitter-specific opinion.
We always vote reform, and when we had the cancellation of the local elections, we was looking forward, because we wanted to vote for a reform.
This is quite common on the doorstep, by the way. You either get people who aren't interested in politics, lefties who have told me grow up and don't vote for that man, or people like this who are very excited for an alternative. We even had someone volunteer once to take a whole pack from us to personally deliver it through doors in an apartment complex that we couldn't get in. That's how excited some people were. That was in Runcorn, by the way. Unironically, that could have won the election.
I think, the country's due for a change, and he's the one for me, sort of thing,
What sort of change do you think he's offering? What's he offering the people of Clacton?
I mean, it is difficult to get into specifics like that, especially off the top of your head, but effectively the best answer anyone can really come up with, and I agree with, is, well, we'll just have a different direction of travel than stagnation. That just makes me feel like I've not got anywhere in life for 20 years.
Not just Clacton, the old nation, if he was to get in as Prime Minister in X amount of years' time. But they say a lot of things, but they don't always follow through. Take Keir Starmer, for instance. So many promises on his election, and they've all virtually gone out the window.
I mean, that's the main thing, isn't it? So why do we vote Tories? Because they were saying very good things for a very long time, and they didn't do any of it. I'm now voting Reform because they are saying the same things but even more to the right, and I actually trust they'll do something about it because, well, what connections do they have to the establishment? The answer, not too many. In fact, the establishment tend to hate them.
But, I've always liked Nigel Farage for years, to be honest. He's never had a chance. Now he's got the chance, so see if he can follow through.
It is very much one of those things I can see in the history books where you just have an entire chapter dedicated to Nigel Farage, his rise from some no-name party called UKIP to avoiding basically every horrible obstacle in his way, including, by the way, tried to retire from politics twice, but everything just kept getting worse and effectively came back and, well, at the very least put the country on a better direction. I won't say saved it, I think it's far too early to say that. But as most people are willing to say when they're voting for him, well, it can't be any worse.
One of his propositions was to strike a deal with the Taliban, a returns agreement to return Afghans back to Afghanistan. Yeah. What do you make of that?
I did hear about it on the news. I mean, say the Taliban haven't been the best of people over the years, what with the wars and everything. And was it when America pulled out and they sort of, on their own people, they restricted them sort of thing, and they went after the people that was doing interpreting and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, if we let them in, plus tens of thousands of others, we very much overdid it because of one idiot Royal Marine that sent an email with a massive spreadsheet attached. And at this point, actually, lawyers have concluded, actually, there's not actually any risk of them being in danger. So realistically, they should all be sent back if that's the case. But will that happen? Who knows?
It's their country. They can do what they want, right? But live and let live. I'll say that's my sort of policy on life. As long as no one does you no harm, let them get on with it.
It's a very long-winded way of saying, yeah, the Taliban are bad, but I don't care. By the way, that's all that's really going on there.
Yeah. So you are perfectly happy with Nigel striking a deal with the Taliban?
What happens out in that country is their business.
Yeah, perfectly fine answer. We're not internationalists, we're not globalists. Can't look after everyone, as Nigel says.
And if they did, I guess, have a right to stay in the country, they successfully claimed asylum, is that something you would be okay with?
Yeah, if they're willing to sort of contribute to the country, pay their taxes like everyone else, why not? Give them a chance.
Yeah, again, this is the average centre-right normie opinion. I don't know where the idea that there are all these crazy, they'd actually all vote for Homeland if they knew what Homeland were idea comes from. It's just not true. People are not screaming for anything that much more right-wing than reform.
Do you think that he could solve the small boats crisis and immigration?
Definitely.
Really?
Yes.
Again, this seems to be the centre-right normie view that I experience too. Twitter is an echo chamber. I've been thinking of doing a video on Advance UK and just how mad they all are, to be honest with you, and how they only really seem to exist to damage Nigel Farage. Same with Restore, by the way. I know they always go on about, we accept Reform members. Charlie Downs is one, don't you know? But realistically, you don't write out articles saying I'm making an alternative to Reform and then pretend that actually you're going to allow people in Reform to join up, unless, obviously, they are naive. Your average normie on the street has trust in Nigel Farage and has trust that Reform will sort out the illegal migration problem and bring down legal migration too, which is all they want. Sorting out the economy and all that, that's just a bonus.
Really?
Yes.
I mean, one of his plans, he said that he would make a deal with the Taliban to send back people from Afghanistan to Afghanistan. What do you make of that?
I think that's a fantastic idea.
I just love to know what is going through this interviewer's head throughout this. At no point has she had the reaction she was expecting, which was effectively, oh my god, that's horrible, I'm not voting for him anymore. It's all just Chad yes. This, by the way, is what Reform has done. This is a movement of the Overton window. You wouldn't get Chad yeses a year ago. You'd get, I don't know about that, might be a bit too far. These days it's just, yep, sounds good, do it.
I think he's a very brave man. I think he's courageous. And I think he's the right person to lead our country.
And that, my friends, is the centre-right normie view on Nigel Farage. It's only the odd time in PoliticsJOE Vox Pops I've heard anyone bring up Rupert Lowe. I've never heard Ben Habibi brought up or Advance UK. Never even heard Restore, to be fair. These are all, frankly, very, very limited Twitter, well, for lack of a better term, echo chambers. Even with Tommy Robinson explicitly coming out in favour of joining Advance UK, from what I can tell from the recent people showing off that they've joined Advance, the membership number hasn't even reached 20,000 people. I know this is a bit of a tangent, and to be honest, it's for a much bigger video, but I really just need to get it into people's heads. Twitter's a bubble. It's not real life, especially the right-wing part of it. It's just not real life. Oddly enough, TikTok and Facebook are much closer to the real-life view of the normie than Twitter is. And hell, I don't think YouTube's that much better, really. Your average normie who's getting news, they're getting it from GB News, which even that has Ben Habib on, and Rupert Lowe, and shows off Restore, and even Advance to some degree. And of course has a whole bunch of Tories on, and yet still, overwhelmingly the normies are backing Reform, as every poll is showing. And even disingenuous questions from leftists just are having no effect at this point. Oh, you're telling me that Farage is now pro-torture? Well, that's just ridiculous. Let's find out what he really said. This is the world we're living in. I didn't think this would happen by 2025. Honestly, have I died and gone to heaven? This is best case scenario in every way. And if you're blackpilled on that, then you're just an eternal loser. There's just no other way of putting it. Anyway, I think with that I will leave it there. So if you enjoy what I do, please do subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Great way to help out the channel. You can also leave a super thanks or a super chat, and of course become a channel member if you are so inclined. Right, I think with that, that's everything I had for you for today. Oh, shilling actually, no, I got to do shilling first. Tonight is Tosh News, Thursday it is more Hollow Knight gameplay, and then on Saturday it's Laughing at the Guardian with some whammon, so do look forward to all of that. Right, with that, that is everything I had for you for today. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.